It's time for business news now, and Stephen Carroll joins me on set. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, Alison.
Now, Stephen, you're starting in the U.S., where the FBI has recovered most of the ransom that was paid to hackers who shut down the Colonial oil pipeline.
Last month's ransomware attack forced the pipeline to halt operations, sparked a run on fuel in parts of the United States. Now, it eventually got back up and running after the operators paid more than $4 million in a ransom. The FBI has been able to track down the majority of the bitcoins paid to hackers, as Fraser Jackson now reports.
It's a first and a big victory for the American justice system.
Today, we turned the tables on DarkSide. The Department of Justice has found and recaptured the majority of the ransom Colonial paid to the DarkSide network in the wake of last month's ransomware attack.
That's a total of 63.7 Bitcoin, worth nearly 2 million euros, recuperated from a hacker group known as DarkSide, believed to be operating out of Eastern Europe and Russia. On May the 7th, this shadowy group seized control of Colonial Pipeline's computer systems. The company manages 45% of the oil supply to the US's east coast. With the pipeline shut down to contain the attack, there was soon a petrol shortage. But the hackers have installed ransomware onto Colonial Pipeline systems and wouldn't give back control unless they paid 75 Bitcoin, around 3.6 million euro. The company pays up, but the cryptocurrency was being tracked by the FBI's Digital Extortion Unit.
We identified a virtual currency wallet that the DarkSide actors used to collect a payment from a victim. Using law enforcement authorities, victim funds were seized from that wallet, preventing DarkSide actors from using them.
Since the attack, the value of Bitcoin has almost halved. Following the largest cyber attack on oil infrastructure in US history, Joe Biden issued an executive order to force companies to communicate any IT breaches.
Now, court documents have given us some of the detail of how the FBI actually managed to track down that money. Agents using the blockchain public ledger that logs all Bitcoin transactions to find where the ransom had been paid to, and then managed to get around 85% of it back from the recipient. Bad news for the company in this story, though, is that because the value of Bitcoin has slumped since it paid the ransom, of course, they're only getting some of the money back. On the 8th of May, when the ransom was paid, Bitcoin was trading just under $60,000 each. It's tumbled in value since, mainly over fears of increased regulation in China. According to the website CoinDesk, it's trading around $32,000 today. The price taking another slump in the past 24 hours, perhaps linked to the news of this ransom being seized. Again, showing us the volatility of cryptocurrencies and just how vulnerable an investment they can be to events coming really from any direction.
Now, Stephen, next we're going to talk about the latest on proposed changes to international tax on companies and some potentially bad news for Amazon.
So when the G7 finance ministers announced they had an agreement on changes to how international companies are taxed, they outlined a set of criteria for companies that would be affected. One of them is that it had to have a profit margin of over 10%. But at that level, one of the world's biggest companies, Amazon, would not have been included. According to various reports today, though, negotiators are working on a mechanism to ensure the e-commerce giant does come within the net of any new tax deal. The Financial Times says that could include considering Amazon's web services division, which is highly profitable, as separate from its online shopping arm. The company says that it fully expects to be covered by any tax deal agreed at the OECD.
Apple, meanwhile, is making a big push for privacy with its latest software upgrade.
The tech giant unveiled a host of new features at its Developers Conference on Monday. They include making FaceTime more like Zoom and split viewing for apps on the iPad. But Apple also doubled down its recent privacy changes, which gave users the chance to stop apps tracking their activity for advertising purposes. This will now be extended to marketing emails as well. That's bad news for firms that rely on data advertising for revenue, though, and comes at a time when Apple has been facing legal battles over the commission that it charges developers.
Any company that relies on tracking individuals or being able to figure out who you are and what you do to serve you advertisements will be very challenged due to these new privacy restrictions that Apple has set up.
Let's take a look at what's happening in the markets next for you. Asian shares generally trading lower today after a mixed finish on Wall Street on Monday. New figures on the Japanese economy showing a smaller than expected contraction of just 1% in the first 3 months of this year. Growth likely to remain weak in the current quarter too due to ongoing coronavirus restrictions. That's the picture on the Asian markets a short time ago.
Stephen, finally from you, the French luxury giant LVMH is making a big investment in its workers.
The company, which owns brands including Louis Vuitton and Moet Champagne, is creating a €30 million solidarity fund. It's to help workers deal with difficult personal situations, many of which, the company says, have been exacerbated during the pandemic. As part of this effort, LVMH is putting in place a special psychological support service for its 150,000 employees, as well as offering financial help in certain circumstances. Now, this fund being announced at a time the company has seen a strong recovery in sales after the pandemic. It had also, of course, created the world's richest man for a very brief period as Bernard Arnault overtook Jeff Bezos for Amazon, but only for a few minutes.
Only for a few minutes. Yeah. It is nice to see these big luxury companies doing some good for workers.
Certainly is.
Stephen, thank you very much for the business update. Stephen Carroll there. I'm going to be back after the break with more world news. In the next 30 minutes, we'll also be heading to the dense forests in the heart of Africa. Today's Focus Report takes us inside one decades-old scientific research facility in the Congo Basin, which is dedicated to the study of the continent's tropical rainforest and its agriculture. Do stay with us. Live from Paris continues.